The Grand Hall buzzed with anticipation. The Galactic Council, a formidable coalition of alien empires, had assembled, each member representing a species known for its own unique prowess. There was an unspoken arrogance in the air, a collective feeling of superiority among the council members, as they discussed recent skirmishes near Earth. Whispers circulated, mocking humanity's apparent lack of military might. A tall, gray-skinned counselor with dark, obsidian-like eyes leaned forward, his voice cutting through the murmur. Humans have shown themselves to be, what's the term? Overly cautious. A species afraid of confrontation. They prefer their diplomatic niceties over action. Another counselor, draped in ceremonial robes that shimmered with every movement, nodded in agreement. Indeed. We've observed their history. These humans avoid war whenever possible. They speak of alliances, of treaties. It's almost quaint. They lack the ruthlessness required to hold their ground in this galaxy. Several others laughed, a ripple of shared disdain sweeping through the council. Their superior tones, veiled in mock admiration, resonated around the hall. However, the human diplomats seated at the far end of the room remained quiet, their faces carefully neutral, betraying nothing. One counselor, a towering creature covered in iridescent scales, leaned forward with a sneer. It's settled then. Humans are merely curious apes, prone to fear. They may have ingenuity, but they lack the spine for true conflict. They are clever at best, but weak. From across the room, a human diplomat named Kalen met the counselor's gaze, holding it steady. Weak? He echoed, his tone controlled, almost too calm. Perhaps you mistake caution for cowardice. We value life, that much is true. But do not confuse a preference for peace with a lack of strength. The room fell silent. The counselors exchanged amused glances, their laughter bubbling again. One counselor, a sharp-featured figure with a predatory grin, mocked. Ah, the humans are speaking up. How delightful. So tell us, Earthling, if you are not afraid, why do you cower behind talks and treaties? Kalen didn't waver. We choose diplomacy because it has saved countless lives. But if pushed... His eyes darkened, and his voice dropped to a near whisper, forcing everyone to lean in. You may come to regret testing our patience. The council scoffed, but a subtle shift of tension prickled in the air. Another human diplomat, Rhea, observed, her gaze moving from one counselor to the next, assessing, absorbing their expressions. Her lips curved into a slight smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. Seeing the human's restraint as weakness, the council made its decision. The council head, a dignified figure with pale, translucent skin and elongated limbs, raised his hand to silence the hall. Enough talk. Humanity will comply with our terms or suffer the consequences. We will see if they can back their bold words. Kalen and Rhea exchanged a glance, a quiet understanding passing between them. Neither said a word as they rose and left the hall, the council's laughter following them like a shadow. In the shadows of a space station orbiting just outside council territory, Kalen and Rhea joined other human strategists and diplomats, their faces grim and focused. A wide, holographic map of the galaxy hovered in the air before them, marked with flashing symbols representing the fleets, stations, and strongholds of the Galactic Council. This map, updated meticulously over years of quiet observation, was the backbone of humanity's contingency plan, one they'd hoped never to need. Rhea's voice was steady as she addressed the group. The Council sees us as weak. They think they can intimidate us into submission. Her gaze swept the room, meeting each pair of eyes with unwavering resolve. But we know better. This is our chance to show them that humanity isn't just capable of survival, we're capable of winning. Another strategist, Commander Sato, leaned forward, his fingers tracing potential paths through council space on the hologram. They've made a critical error by underestimating us. They're relying on brute force and sheer numbers, but they haven't accounted for flexibility, innovation, and, above all, the unpredictability of human tactics. Kalen nodded, his gaze fixed on the map. Our best advantage lies in their overconfidence. They're used to traditional warfare, rigid formations, and predictable tactics. We'll give them chaos, something they won't be able to control. The group fell silent, each person contemplating the gravity of what lay ahead. The Council's forces were vast, their power unchallenged by any known race in the galaxy. But humanity had an edge, a hard-won resilience forged through centuries of conflict and struggle, a tenacity that had kept them alive on Earth despite countless odds. A young intelligence officer named Mara spoke up, her voice tinged with nervous excitement. "We've positioned stealth drones along their main trade routes. They're invisible to the Council's standard sensors, able to transmit real-time updates on fleet movements. We'll know when and where they're coming before they even realize they're being watched." Commander Sato smiled grimly. "Good. Let them come. We'll draw them in just far enough to make them think they have the upper hand, and then we strike." Kalen tapped a section of the holographic map, highlighting a string of seemingly unimportant way stations along the Council's supply lines. "These are their Achilles heel. Take these out, and their supply chains collapse. The Council won't be able to support a prolonged engagement without them." Rhea added, "We'll use guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run assaults, sabotage, anything that will keep them off balance. The goal isn't to defeat them outright but to weaken them, stretch them thin, and make them second-guess every move." The group listened intently as Kalen continued. "We won't show them our full strength immediately. Instead, we let them think they're winning, that their strategy is working. And then, when they're most vulnerable, we'll hit them hard." Another diplomat, an older man named Dragon, spoke up, his voice calm but carrying the weight of experience. "They'll react with force and rage. It's essential we stay one step ahead at all times. The moment they realize we're not the helpless creatures they thought, they'll become desperate." Rhea's voice was barely a whisper, but its intensity filled the room. "Let them. Desperation breeds mistakes, and mistakes are fatal." A brief silence settled over the room as each person absorbed the plan, committing to what would be one of humanity's most daring gambles. There was no turning back. They were preparing to face an empire that ruled half the known galaxy, an empire that saw them as little more than an inconvenient anomaly. As the meeting adjourned, Kalen caught Rhea's eye, a flicker of unspoken understanding passing between them. They were no strangers to conflict, but this was different. This was a battle for respect, for their place in the galaxy. And they were ready. The alien fleet, a massive armada of shimmering, angular warships, dropped into Earth's orbit with chilling precision. From the Council's command center, high-ranking admirals watched the viewscreens with satisfaction, confident in the sheer size of their force. Rows of ships, each armed with the latest in Council weaponry, hovered like an iron wall over Earth, prepared to intimidate humanity into submission. But as they scanned for human defenses, their screens showed nothing. The skies above Earth were empty, with no visible resistance or defensive fortifications. The alien commanders sneered, certain that humans had decided to hide. "Pathetic," one admiral scoffed, turning to his colleagues. "They haven't even shown up to defend their own world." Then, without warning, several Council ships at the edge of the formation exploded in quick succession, their hulls torn open by unseen attackers. Chaos erupted as warning lights blared across the fleet, but no enemy ships appeared on the sensors. The admirals barked commands, demanding explanations, but all they received were panicked reports and static-filled transmissions. Unknown to the Council, human ships had been lying in wait, hidden by advanced cloaking technology that made them virtually invisible. The initial explosions were just the beginning. The human fleet struck with the precision of a scalpel, targeting the weak points of each alien ship, causing maximum damage with minimum exposure. From one cloaked human ship, Commander Sato observed the confusion among the Council fleet with grim satisfaction. They expected an easy conquest. Let's give them a lesson they won't forget. Human ships darted in and out of the shadows, using speed and agility to their advantage. They deployed a series of electronic countermeasures, jamming the Council fleet's communications and scrambling their targeting systems. The alien admirals watched in horror as their weapon systems fired wildly, missing targets that should have been easy hits. One alien commander, watching his screen in disbelief, realized what was happening. "They're exploiting our systems," adapting faster than we can respond. His hands shook as he turned to his second-in-command. How did they develop this technology without our knowledge? Back on Earth, Kalen and Rhea monitored the battle from a remote control center, coordinating the strikes with flawless timing. Their voices were calm, issuing precise commands to pilots and tactical units. Every move had been planned meticulously, designed to exploit the Council's rigid formation and heavy reliance on traditional strategies. Keep them disoriented, Rhea instructed. They're used to fighting armies that confront them head-on. We don't give them that satisfaction. Hit them, vanish, and strike again from a different angle. The Council's fleet grew increasingly desperate, the lines of communication breaking down as ship after ship fell victim to human tactics. The alien admirals shouted over each other, issuing frantic orders, but there was no coordination, only chaos. Humanity's tactic of guerrilla warfare had thrown them completely off balance. On the battlefield, human ships deployed drones equipped with EMP devices, short-circuiting the electrical systems of alien vessels. Ships that weren't outright destroyed found themselves floating, powerless and drifting, while human fighters swiftly picked off isolated targets. A battered alien cruiser sent a last-ditch transmission to the command ship, pleading for reinforcements, but it was too late. The battle was slipping irreversibly out of the Council's control. Humanity's resilience and adaptability had turned the tide, and the Council fleet was left scrambling to recover, forced into a humiliating retreat. With their fleet shattered and scattered, the Galactic Council's remaining forces limped back, their retreat plagued by communication blackouts and demoralizing whispers. The surviving Council admirals, weary and shaken, gathered for an emergency broadcast, only to be met with another crushing blow. Human forces had infiltrated their network. Before them, a message from Earth's representatives began to play, streamed across every Council outpost in the galaxy. Kalen appeared on screen, his expression calm but carrying a weight that silenced every watching alien. His words were steady, each one measured and deliberate. To the members of the Galactic Council who called us fearful, who saw us as mere insects, know this: we sought peace because we value life. But do not mistake that value for weakness. As his message played, images of the recent battle filled the screens. The Council's defeated ships, drifting lifeless in space, outmaneuvered and outclassed by a force they had underestimated. The message was clear, each image a stark reminder of humanity's unexpected strength. Across the galaxy, Council members sat in stunned silence, watching in disbelief. The might of their empire had been humbled by a species they considered primitive. The Council chambers, normally filled with pride and self-assured confidence, now held an uneasy, fearful quiet. Back on Earth, Rhea addressed the human team with a faint smile, one of pride tempered by the solemn knowledge of what they had accomplished. She knew the impact of that message, the irreversible shift it would bring to humanity's standing in the galaxy. The Council would no longer view Earth as a subject, but as an equal, or even as a threat. On the Council's command center, the head counselor watched the final moments of the message, his expression hardened by a new respect tinged with resentment. We underestimated them, he muttered, almost to himself. This was no accident. They have studied us, prepared for us. An aide whispered urgently. What are our next steps? Do we prepare for another engagement? The Council head's gaze remained fixed on the darkened screen where Kalen's message had played. A lingering image of Earth appeared, proud and unyielding, defying the Council's authority. He shook his head slowly. Not yet. Humanity has shown its teeth, and I have no desire to see them bare their fangs further. In a final, symbolic gesture, human forces released a parting transmission across the galaxy, a call for unity among all races oppressed by the Council's rigid rule. It was a message of resilience, of standing against tyranny, a spark that would ignite across dozens of star systems, inspiring those who had long suffered under the Council's iron hand. For the first time, the Galactic Council faced a threat not just from humanity, but from within its own empire. Dissent began to simmer among previously loyal subjects, emboldened by humanity's defiance. The once unshakable authority of the Council wavered, a giant brought to its knees by those it had dismissed. As Kalen and Rhea looked out over Earth from their command center, they shared a silent, satisfied understanding. Humanity had proven its strength, not just in battle, but in spirit, sending a message that reverberated far beyond any single conflict. The galaxy had been shown a new path, one where even the mighty Galactic Council could no longer wield power unchecked. And in the distant council chamber, the head counselor sat alone, haunted by the realization that they had not only lost a battle but had awakened a force that would reshape the galaxy forever.